What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another HR Heretics segment. We have our homie, Siadhal Magos from Metaview back on for our AI Corner. And today we want to talk about unstructured data. But before we lose you and your eyes gloss over and you're like, oh my God, like put on something else into my ears, I'll give you a couple of examples of what I mean by unstructured data. So specifically with people and recruiting, things like performance reviews, things like job scorecards when we're doing interviews. Sile, why does unstructured data matter in the era of AI?
Yeah, thanks, Nolan. You gave a couple of examples there, but really actually most of the data in the world is what we call unstructured data. When we have conversations and we're exchanging information with each other, there's unstructured data in those conversations, emails back and forth, PDFs, performance reviews you mentioned, scorecards. These aren't sort of data you can sort of caress and put into a cell in Excel or store as a value in a database somewhere, but they're actually still incredibly rich with data that we use to decide what to do next. And so one of the biggest impacts by far that AI is already having and will continue to have is that we can now make sense, we can capture and harness this unstructured data at scale. And rather than needing someone deeply technical to bring meaning out of this data for us, we can actually start to interpret it and query it just using natural language. So this is going to have a really huge impact, across business, probably across society, frankly. But I would say especially within HR and recruiting, there's so much of the insight that folks work on as HR leaders or HR practitioners or as recruiters. So much of the insight they work on is from these maybe these unstructured interactions or these sort of hastily written notes that get passed to them or these quick Slack messages or whatever it might be. That's the data they're operating based on in so many cases that it's really going to have a massive impact in those fields, especially. In fact, I'd almost argue that one of the reasons why at times people get frustrated with HR folks or with recruiting folks is because they feel that they're being forced to structure data for the HR team's benefit or structure data for the recruiting team's benefit manually, right? I've just had a deep conversation with my direct report about how their performance is going, and it was really sort of nuanced and multifaceted, and all of these sort of things. And then I've got to sort of summarize that in a few bullet points and a rating at the end of the project. I know you need the data, HR folks, but this is not actually feeling value add to me. Or I just had a really deep conversation with this candidate. It's impossible for me to sort of summarize what I think that human being might be able to do in this company with a thumbs up or thumbs down, but I'll do it because you're asking me to. And so I actually think moving away from this world where we're asking our people to structure unstructured data for us and instead leveraging AI for it is also even going to be, from a reputation perspective, a really good thing for HR and recruiting folks as well.
It kind of clicked for me, Sile. Like I was like, am I missing something? Unstructured data? Is it a big confusing, right? Very technical thing? And no, I mean it's all the stuff that we've been reading, using, doing. It's just a new name for it. At least it's helpful for the audience. That's how I made sense of it. And you're totally right, because now for the first time, it's kind of like how Google's search query, right? They make sense of the whole world and they organize all the world's information. Same thing. Like now I can take 2,000 employees' verbatim comments, an engagement survey, and instead of reading it over 3 days, which I used to do, like very quickly at scale, make sense of it and use that information.
Yeah, totally. I think starting to think of almost everything as data is like a positive thing to encourage folks to do. Like I come from a technical background, and so maybe I overuse it in some ways, right? Like if I step out and I realize it's cold, that's a data point. I'm going to go back in, put my coat back on. And I think of that as data as well. So the point is, all of this, I think maybe we'll put pay to this phrase, like who out here is data driven. Everyone is data driven, right? Everyone just indexes and reacts differently to certain different types of data. Like maybe the data I react really well to is a piece of verbally communicated information from someone I really respect. That's really a data point that I'm now going to go and react to. So yeah, all of this is data. The reality is HR and recruiting has relied primarily on unstructured data in order to operate, in order to get to the business outcomes that they care about. That data is now going to be really transparent, really accessible for everyone. And yeah, you're not going to have to spend 3 days reviewing this stuff. And in fact, you might even be able to move away from a world where you ask people to write performance reviews for carve out 3 weeks from their diary every 6 months to write it up. And instead, it's much more of an ongoing thing. And the AI is bringing to you things that you need to know based on what we know you've been interested in the past. So I think it's going to be a real game changer, both from the accessibility of the data, but also from the ability to consume it. And I think maybe another way to think about it is a lot of people, the sort of the chat GPT moment for a lot of folks, the sort of the wow moment was like, wow, these computers can actually write. Can you believe it? They're actually writing things like, that seemingly novel and new things. And that, don't get me wrong, that is amazing. But I think people will start to think about now, as you get more and more business applications of AI, that in many ways, actually the really amazing thing that AI can do is read for you, read those, 3,000 performance reviews for you. And then of course, and it doesn't have to be pre-cleaned. It doesn't have to be pre-structured. It doesn't have to be processed by everyone else in the company so that they can read it. It just goes ahead and reads it for you and finds the most interesting information. And again, they'll just be like far better decisions, far better people decisions as a result of that.
That's actually what I want. So that was the clicking moment for me. So, the goal has always been to be more objective. And actually, like, I'll take this a step further and say, I think that one of the biggest criticisms of merit and having merit in organizations is that ultimately it's a subjective decision. Everything becomes subjective. And in my mind, what we're talking about here is actually trying to move more towards objectivity. For example, like recording this conversation, you know exactly what I'm saying. You're seeing my facial expression, like you're seeing how I'm engaged in it. Like there's a lot of data that's happening, not just my words, not just your words, but our facial expressions and how we interact with each other that could be interpreted by an AI and that can help leaders make decisions on people. For example, promotions. For example, hiring decisions. For example, compensation. Is that where we're going?
Yeah, totally. And especially as more and more people's, definitely meetings, I think are that's the biggest thing, having moved online. Many meetings now happen within arm's length of a camera and a microphone, which means we can capture it. That's happened obviously for the last decade or so. Now, obviously the last 2 years, well, not only can we capture it, we can actually, harvest information from it really scalably, but it's actually true in other cases too. So I often think about my background as a product manager. You get many different flavors of product managers in the world. You get some who are really technical. You get some who are really sort of customer empathetic. Some who are essentially designers, because they're so sort of like on point with the nuances of design and all these things. Some who are basically data analysts. You get these different flavors. You get great ones of each flavor. I've seen it. But I often think, well, I know some great PMs who didn't do great work. And actually, if that organization knew that, hey, looks like Siadhal as a PM is spending a lot of time in Figma, a lot of time talking to customers, but actually very little time in the data analysis tool. And he's working on a project that's all about data, let's say. Like, I've got my Moneyball moment where I realize I've got this great asset, which is this person. They're great at doing work. I've just got them in the wrong position because I know their biases are actually towards these other systems. So I think we all have this digital exhaust as we go about our day that is essentially data we're going to use to build amazing teams, but also maintain amazing teams, promote the right people, frankly, fire the right people as well. How many times have you been part of like reward committees or promotion committees where, the decision has really come down to whether explicitly said or not, I think this person might leave if we don't promote them, whereas this top performer, I think they're okay for now, so we'll just leave them where they are. Like, does the CEO of your company want reward decisions to be made like that? Absolutely not. They want it to be made based on real objective data about who is performing at their best. And we're going to actually have that moment because a lot of that data, again, you can't find it in a spreadsheet. You find it in how people go about their work.
Hey, everyone. We'll be right back in a moment after a word from our sponsors.
I must admit, I used to believe that AI didn't actually exist in recruiting or HR. That is until my friend Heather Doche, who leads talent at Signalfire, told me to check out Metaview. I got into the product and was like, wow, AI actually does exist in recruiting, and this product is sick. Metaview is the world's #1 AI scribe built specifically for recruiting. Their AI records and transcribes hiring conversations, like intakes, interviews, and debriefs, then provides perfectly summarized notes of everything that was discussed. I've seen firsthand how tough it can be to extract consistently high-quality data from candidate conversations. I've been in debriefs where interviewers told us about their feelings instead of what actually happened in the interview. And I've seen VPs and CEOs block hires because they didn't learn anything from skeleton scorecards. Metaview changes everything. With perfect notes from every conversation, your people can focus on creating a human connection with candidates, and they can save time on the busy work of cleaning up notes after every interview. But it's so much more than just a time saver, because perfect notes means perfect data. For every candidate and every pipeline, hiring teams can make confident, informed decisions, and talent leaders can finally take control of the interview process. Metaview covers all your compliance needs, works with all your existing tools, and takes less than 3 minutes to set up. Join talent leaders at organizations like Brex, Deal, HelloFresh, and Quora, and check out Metaview. Head over to metaview.ai/heretics to talk to one of Metaview's product experts. Tell them that me and Kelly sent you. Or you could just go to their website and get started for free. You'll be up, running, and AI-enabled in minutes.
Siadhal, I think you said it really cleanly. Like AI can now read for you, right? We can be objective and ingest all this information very quickly. So just to be a little heretical, which is, you see what I did there, Nolan? What if it reads wrong? Like if I can just channel the naysayers, like, or even like my paranoia, what if something's missed? What if there's some nuance or subjectivity in a good way, or judgment or discreet, like what if it reads wrong and it spits out something and you and again you miss something? That could be something that I would anticipate people to push back on.
Totally. And I think, let's be real, like this is going to happen. Like as we're on this journey, there's going to be cases where, well, bad things happen, we're led astray by the technology. There's some really good frameworks emerging among serious AI companies around how to handle this type of thing, where you essentially want human in the loop. Because human in the loop is a really good phrase to be aware of. Essentially means that at some point in a decision-making workflow, and it doesn't have to be like a big decision, it can be a minor decision about like how to move forward in a process. Let's say you want humans involved. But even within that, you need to sort of get the level of abstraction correctly. What I mean by that is, in some cases, you might want the AI's job just to be to notify the human being that something happened. Not going to take any action whatsoever. I'm just letting you know that this thing happened in this meeting, in this corner of your business that is, misaligned with what we agreed the objectives were, for example.
Like a nudge.
Yeah, like a nudge. Is that just a notification? The next thing in another setting, you might say the AI only has permission to notify me about these things. Don't take any action. Or you might say the AI has permission to actually take action, but ask me a question if it needs clarification for these set of activities. So same thing, it's still sort of, sucking up all of this unstructured data, forming a better and better sort of ability to take actions on your behalf. But at some points, there are certain rule sets in place that means if you want to do a certain thing, ask me first, and I'll approve you to go and do the next step. And then the third piece is review. So this sort of notify, question, review. I guess as an industry, we're still learning how do we sort of build these behaviors into the AI, and they are going to be very human-like behaviors. Just as you might have some very junior members of your team who, you really don't initially trust to take any action. You just, hey, give me the information, then I'll go and do something with it. Others you might expect to sort of come to you and ask you permission to do something, and then they can go and do it. And others you just fully trust. We're going to end up with the same relationship with various AI agents within our tool set. And actually, I'd say one of the things that's going to differentiate operator from operator is human operator, to be clear, is what level of autonomy do I give AI in what settings? So let's say I'm a really hands-off manager. I might say, you know what, AI, stop coming to me with these questions about this. I don't give a shit. You can just do it because I don't think it's important. Or because I've trained you so well, I've tuned you so well, I've weighted you so well, I've given you so much context that I trust you. You can go and make these decisions for me. Whereas I might be more, I might not be quite so forward, and I might be, no, I always want to be in the loop fully, only ever notify me about things and leave it to me to do something with it. And that's really going to determine who the best human operators in the world are, is how they leverage these tools. So basically, to answer your question, Kelly, yeah, there are going to be problems. There are going to be missteps. There are emerging best practices that AI companies like ours are sort of adopting around when do you enable the AI just to notify, just only to question, and sometimes when it can actually take the task, but just make it available to the human to review. And those are the things we're going to have to get familiar with and comfortable with as we learn how to rebuild our companies with these capabilities in mind.
That's really helpful. So my two takeaways, if it's helpful for the group on all of that, is one, humans still need to be involved, right? We don't take this, copy paste it, send it out without looking at it, right? Put some put some thought into it and take a look at it. The second one, which I think is even better, is there are ways to crawl, walk, and run with this. I think a lot of folks think it's either I'm jumping in the deep end head first or it's nothing. And there are ways to kind of put your toe in the water and test this and increase it based on your comfort level and the success you're having.
The ad that I'll make, Kelly, I think your point is perfect. It reminds me of Waymo, right? So like right now we have about 40,000 people per year in the United States die from car crashes. But I think the problem with Waymo is like, we know it's safer today, but if that robot, AI robot, kills one person, we're going to have a really big problem. But how do you weigh 42,999 other deaths, right, versus the one because of the AI mistake? And I think our bar for AI is going to be significantly higher than what it is for humans, as it should be. But the thing I learned that you just described, Siadhal, is that there's nuance with this. It's not, we're not going to move from human powered to AI powered. It's not like we flip a switch and then boom, AI's here, no more humans needed, goodbye, like all decisions are made by AI. There's going to be this gradient to where humans are still involved and part of the process, but we're just made smarter and we have more tools and ammunitions to make better decisions.
It's so interesting. Like, I was in the city yesterday in San Francisco, doing my thing, and a Waymo car drove up next to me into a bike lane, and this biker threw a fit. I mean, started hitting the car. You're in the bike lane, and I just thought of it because it's a great example of AI not being able to yet apply human judgment and nuance that this is a fucking bike lane. I'm going to stay out of it. Just pulled right into it. The guy went insane. I mean, it was actually quite entertaining. But that's a small example of exactly what we're just talking about.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously that Waymo is taking in that data, right? It's capturing that cyclist going crazy. It's hearing the same like swear words in its microphones. It's thinking it's that's adding that to the model and saying, well, let's not do that again. And that's how it learns. One thing I would say is the conversation has gone towards automation a lot of the time, like how we're going to use agentic AI, which I think makes a ton of sense because that's really what the unstructured data is going to enable. I guess the point that I think is maybe most important right now is if you don't start capturing and harnessing the unstructured data, you will not ever have high quality agents. If you want an AI agent in your company, we talked about obviously 11x last time on this segment. If you want an AI agent in your sales team, in your sales force, but that AI agent is not aware that the VP of sales just announced verbally to the company, we're going to focus on this feature and this market, then that AI agent is not going to be as good as the human beings. And some people out there will say, great, well, let's not tell the AI then, because I want to be better than the AI. But that's not the way things are going. The fact is we are going to work out how to get these AIs, as effective as possible. But it has to have the context. It has to have the context you have. Or if I'm a recruiting AI agent, which is obviously something I spend a lot of time thinking about, and the HM, the hiring manager, has just said to me that it's really important this candidate is willing to work in office. And then as the AI, I don't go and include that in my notes as like one of the main things that I submit to the HM when any sort of, half decent recruiter would, then I'm also not going to be the tool of choice in that company. So the point is, yes, all roads do lead to AI taking action on top of this unstructured data in some cases. In some cases, that action will just be, again, informing people that things are happening. But the main point is there's so much valuable unstructured data within HR and recruiting that I would say, I guess my encouragement is start to think about how you can capture it. And yes, have applications in mind about how you're going to use it in the short term. But almost the most important thing is starting to capture it, because you won't sort of be on the frontier, frankly, of AI adoption if you're not.
Yeah. And garbage in, garbage out. I mean, you have to, feed it the right stuff or it's useless.
Absolutely.
You got it. Cool. Siadhal, this is super helpful. We love these. We love these corners. And audience, let us know what you want to hear from Siadhal next month. AI is rapidly changing. We're filming this today on January 15th. Literally yesterday, OpenAI came out with a brand new feature that will probably be one of our topics for next time. But send us messages, either me or Kelly on LinkedIn. And then obviously you can find Siadhal also on LinkedIn. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Sal.
Yeah.
HR Heretics is a podcast from Turpentine, the network behind Econ 102, Moment of Zen, and Turpentine VC. Subscribe, 5 stars, share it on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, all the things.